July 16, 1969, Merritt Island, Florida. The Saturn V rocket launches from the Kennedy Space Center, carrying with it the crew of NASA's Apollo 11 spaceflight mission. Their destination? The Moon. The rocket soars off into the heavens, closing the curtain on an 18-year-long battle for supremacy between the world's two greatest superpowers. In its wake, it leaves a mountain of technological breakthroughs and social influences that will forever transform the lives of modern-day people. The space race, as this rivalry is commonly known, was a heated proxy battle between the United States and the Soviet Union in the midst of the Cold War. The two nations competed with one another for technological superiority, continually trying to trump one another in a race to expand humanity's influence into outer space. The ultimate goal of this feud? To safely put a human being on the moon. Much like Columbus before them, these nations sought to explore beyond the known world, and set foot where no man had been before. Though it was a political conflict at heart, this temporary fixation of space exploration by the people of the United States and USSR proved to be one of the most enormous explosions of technological advances in the history of mankind, one which shaped countless of the modern conveniences that now define our lives. Ironically, this bitter feud proved that space exploration is among the most beneficial endeavors that humanity can undertake as a species. Sending a man to the moon is a phenomenally difficult task. Space is an unforgiving place, an environment downright impossible for humans to live in. On top of this, the moon sits over 230,000 miles away from Earth, a distance roughly 80 times the space between New York and Los Angeles. To send people so far away in such hostile conditions meant that the US and Soviet Union needed to make enormous leaps in almost all scientific fields. As a result of focused scientific research during the space race, we now have many of the technologies we use on a day-to-day basis. The most prominent of these are technologies based on satellite communications. NASA launched the United States' first satellites during these years, a stepping stone towards putting larger objects into space. As a result, satellite television was able to come into existence, as these satellites provided a means of broadcasting signals across the world. The GPS in your car and phone are also made possible by the same technology. Laptops as well were first created for use in space. NASA created the first portable computer for use by astronauts on board spacecraft. Even simple appliances can trace their origin back to this journey towards space. The dustbuster was originally invented as a convenient way to collect samples of rocks on the moon. In the 1960s and in following decades, many of these technologies immediately diffused out into the consumer market, revolutionizing the conception of daily life for the average American. But household objects are not the only technologies to feel the influence of a strong space program. NASA needs to pay extra care to medical technology to ensure that the astronauts will be able to return home alive from such a long and arduous journey. As a direct result of aerospace research, we now have medical tools such as defibrillators and liquid-cooled clothing used to treat spinal injuries. Food was also of concern on a long voyage through space. There are no alternative sources to gain food in space, so having spoiled rations would spell disaster. As a result, NASA devised a systematic process for determining food safety that is now the standard utilized by the FDA. Though space exploration is a highly specific goal, investing in society's resources in this endeavor produces a large swath of technological innovations with far-reaching and potentially unexpected benefits. This being said, let's shift our focus to a less tangible but equally important benefit reaped from the space race: a revolution in America's education system. Although the United States was the first nation to place a man on the moon, it was actually the USSR that experienced the first victory of the space race. In October of 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the very first satellite put into orbit by human beings. It circled around the globe, allowing for citizens across America to see it in the night sky and hear its radio transmissions. It was a landmark achievement in human history. This was America's wake-up call to give their education system some much-needed investment. Congress passed acts that called for scholarships in the sciences, and for more rigorous and well-planned teaching methods in these fields. But it was not only educators that were impacted. An entire generation of Americans was inspired to put their best efforts into space exploration by this post-Sputnik fervor. Even Alan Shepard, the first American in space, decided the path of his career upon hearing of the launch of the Sputnik. Space exploration is simultaneously a productive scientific goal and something far more romantic, something that catches the imagination of countless people and pushes a society to come together like few other challenges. Public interest in space exploration has dwindled in the passing years. For many, investment in space ended with the space race and Cold War. It can be easy to consider space exploration to be a far-off, unimportant field that has nothing to do with the day-to-day lives of you and I down here on Earth. However, this is anything but the case. To gear one's efforts towards the stars is to simultaneously contribute to life down here on terra firma. Though the crazed political fever of the space race has long since ended, our journey out into the great frontier of space hopefully never will.